Think about a moment. Just a few decades back, India was a nation stripped of its voice, its power, its ability to defend itself. The British didn't just take land, they took imagination, they crushed innovation, destroyed courage, and broke India's ability to protect its own people. But what happens when a sleeping giant wakes up with fire in its eyes and steel in its bones? See, this isn't just about defense systems or military upgrades. This is about revenge. This is about a nation that once had its hands tied behind its back, now building weapons so advanced, so precise, so unstoppable that even global superpowers are forced to stop and stare with fear. It's not just technological progress, it's divine justice unfolding in real time. Let's be honest, the fear America feels isn't just about the speed or range of Indian missiles, it's the spirit behind them. Because when a nation that was once exploited begins to lead in fields like hypersonic warfare, AI-driven drones, and anti-satellite capabilities, it's not just a flex of muscles, it's the roar of something greater, something eternal. India isn't just building weapons, it's rewriting the narrative, and that's what's making people afraid. The West got used to seeing India as a land of outsourcing, yoga, and spirituality. But now they're seeing a country that's not only coding apps, but coding missile guidance systems. A country that once had to buy rifles from outside is now exporting multi-million-dollar defense systems. There's a spiritual authority rising behind the steel and circuits, and you can feel it, and you can fear it. And make no mistake, this rise is not accidental, it's prophetic. For decades, India was told to stay in its lane. Developing nation, third world, too crowded, too chaotic. But that's the thing about people and nations that have been underestimated. They develop a kind of strength that isn't obvious until it erupts. And when it erupts, it doesn't just compete, it conquers. What we're witnessing is the transformation of pain into purpose and humiliation into strategy. Weapons like BrahMos, Agni-V, and the cutting-edge Tejas fighter jets are not just technological marvels. They're the physical embodiment of India saying, never again will we be powerless, never again will we bow. It's spiritual too. There's something about the collective soul of a nation that rises up after centuries of suppression and says, we will protect what is ours, that's sacred, that's prophetic, that's something to fear. Because this transformation, this divine comeback story isn't just for India's benefit, it's a global signal, a cosmic announcement that the age of dependence is over. And if you're watching this from across the world, don't miss the deeper message here. This isn't just about nations, it's about people, it's about you. If India can go from being told it has no future to now designing the future of global defense, what's stopping you from becoming a force others fear? That's the question that rattles the powerful. Because deep down they know it. Once purpose meets power, the world changes. You want to know why America is afraid? Because the very ones they once overlooked are now building the very things that can't be ignored. And that's how the future is written. By those who refuse to stay silent, refuse to stay small, and refuse to bow to limits that were never theirs to begin with. When you think of military powerhouse, you probably imagine billion-dollar budgets, legacy defense contractors, and decades of supremacy. But in the heart of South Asia, there's an agency that's doing something different. It's called DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization of India. And what they're building is not just weapons, it's fear wrapped in precision. See, most people think power comes from imitation, copy what works, reverse engineer sucks. Yes, but DRDO didn't go that road. They took the long road, the harder one. They poured decades into homegrown tech, battling budget constraints, political skepticism, even international sanctions, and still they emerged with a playbook the world wasn't ready for. A playbook that's now making even the Pentagon nervous, because it's not just about missiles or tanks, it's about the mindset behind the innovation. The way DRDO thinks, it's not just strategic, it's spiritual. It's as if every blueprint they draft carries a whisper from history that says, we will not be bound again. They're not racing to impress the West. They're fulfilling a deeper mandate to protect a future they believe in. And that kind of motivation creates weapons that don't just perform, they dominate. Let's talk specifics. DRDO has developed hypersonic missile technology that can travel at speeds 5 times faster than sound. Think about that. A weapon that closes the gap between decision and destruction in seconds. Most countries are still testing that concept. India, they've already tested it and they're pushing further. That's not just advancement, that's supremacy. Then there's artificial intelligence in combat. DRDO is integrating AI into surveillance, drones, autonomous vehicles, and even defense analytics. It's no longer man versus machine, it's man and machine aligned with mission. The kind of tech that once only existed in Hollywood scripts is now being coded and deployed by Indian minds, many of whom come from humble beginnings, driven not by ego but by purpose. That combination creates something unstoppable. They've also made breakthroughs in directed energy weapons. Think lasers that can disable enemy drones mid-air without a single bullet. Sci-fi? Not anymore. DRDO is already testing prototypes that can neutralize threats with pure energy. And let's not forget quantum radar systems, built to detect stealth aircraft that traditional radar can't even see. That's next level. That's future-proof. That's terrifying. But here's what sets this all apart. DRDO doesn't innovate just for domination. They innovate for sovereignty. They innovate so India never has to beg for permission again, because every upon they build is one less dependency. Every breakthrough is a declaration. We are no longer at the mercy of foreign policy. That is a different kind of warfare. It's psychological, it's prophetic, and it's powerful. And don't miss this. The people behind these innovations are not disconnected elites. They're engineers, scientists, researchers, many of whom studied under flickering lights in rural homes, who grew up with a dream not to escape their nation, but to elevate it. That's the kind of fire the West doesn't fully understand. Because when innovation is fueled by survival, by identity, by calling, it hits different. It doesn't just shock you, it changes you, it makes you afraid. What DRDO is doing right now is forcing a recalibration of global military alliances. Nations are watching, deals are shifting, even NATO countries are reaching out, not just to sell, but to collaborate. Because when purpose meets intelligence, it produces results that money alone can't buy, and fear that money can't eliminate. And here's the bottom line. America isn't afraid of India's weapons because they didn't see the data. They're afraid because they didn't see the heart behind it. They underestimated the hunger, the discipline, the silence. They didn't realize that while they were busy watching each other, India was building in the shadows. Now the lights are on and the world sees it and the world fears it. Let's talk about something that has the attention of every major defense analyst in the world. A single missile that changed the entire perception of India's military capability and sent chills down the spines of global superpowers. It's called BrahMos. Sounds poetic, almost like a mythological name, and that's exactly what it is, a blend of Brahmaputra from India and Moskva from Russia. But don't let the poetic name fool you. This missile isn't here to entertain, it's here to dominate, and it's here to terrify. BrahMos is the fastest supersonic cruise missile in the world. Let that sink in. Not just in Asia, not just in the developing world, in the entire world. It travels at Mach 3, TP10. 3 times the speed of sound. That means by the time most air defense systems detect it, it's already done what it came to do. No delays, no mercy, just pure precision and absolute destruction. Now, here's what makes BrahMos different from every other missile in the world and why it's making defense experts lose sleep. It wasn't built purely on Russian tech. It was built on Indian will. Yes, the collaboration began with Russia, but India didn't just co-sign and coast. They refined it, enhanced it, streamlined it. What began as a joint effort became a demonstration of Indian genius, and that's what terrified the West. Because BrahMos wasn't supposed to work this well, it wasn't supposed to outperform American and Chinese systems in so many categories, range, accuracy, versatility, but it did. And now even the U.S. military is watching closely, not because they want to stop it, but because they need to understand how this weapon became so deadly that it can be launched from land, sea, submarines, and aircraft. That's a game changer. Flexibility like that makes a defense system unpredictable, and unpredictability on the battlefield is often the difference between victory and defeat. BrahMos doesn't just strike, it multiplies fear, it keeps enemies guessing, it creates space for strategy, and the message it sends is loud and clear. India doesn't need to follow anymore. It leads, it sets the pace, it sets the terms. That's not a military shift, that's a mental shift that strikes fear into the hearts of those who once controlled. Because this missile represents more than metal and fuel. It represents the mind of a nation that refuses to be underestimated again. What's even more shocking to global superpowers is the speed at which India evolved. Most countries spend decades refining a weapon system like this. India went from blueprint to battlefield with stunning precision and relentless drive. And they're not stopping. They're now working on BrahMos 2, a hypersonic variant at Mach 7. That's 7 times the speed of sound. That's practically impossible to intersea. And yes, it's being developed right now. Why does this matter? Because in the world of modern warfare, deterrence is everything. You don't have to launch the missile to win the war. You just have to have it, and the world starts thinking twice before challenging you. BrahMos is that kind of weapon. It commands respect through fear. It enforces boundaries through terror. It protects sovereignty without ever needing to shout, because its very existence whispers danger. And the truth is, this missile isn't just about defending borders. It's about defending dignity. It's a signal to the world that India will never again be caught unprepared, never again be silenced by foreign power, and never again be forced to wait for someone else's permission to act. The beauty of BrahMos isn't just in its speed, it's in what it represents. A turning point where a nation once viewed as the world's back office is now redefining the front line with weapons that inspire fear. With one missile, India didn't just enter the room, it restructured the entire room and made everyone else uncomfortable. So if you're wondering why America is afraid, it's simple. They looked away for too long, and by the time they looked back, BrahMos was already airborne and the game had already changed forever. Now let's shift the focus quite literally upward, because while most of the world has been fighting battles on the ground, India has been quietly climbing into territory that once belonged only to the giants. And no, I'm not just talking about satellites. I'm talking about something far more strategic, far more unsettling to those who thought they had a monopoly on the sky, space-based warfare. It's easy to think of space as this clean scientific zone where telescopes float and astronauts take selfies. But that's outdated thinking. The real battlefield of the 21st century isn't just on land or sea, it's above us. Whoever controls the skies doesn't just control airspace. They control information, movement, timing, communication. And India understands that better than most. And that understanding is making superpowers very, very nervous. Enter Mission Shakti, a name that literally means power. In 2019, India successfully tested an anti-satellite missile, destroying one of its own satellites in low Earth orbit. It was a precise strike made in real time against a movie target 300 kilometers above the planet. Think about that for a moment. A direct hit from Earth to an object moving at 27,000 kilometers per hour in space. That's not just science, that's prophecy with propulsion. That's power that inspires fear. And let's be clear, only 3 countries had ever pulled that off before: America, Russia, and China. Then came India, a country that the West once looked at as too chaotic, too poor, too distracted to matter. And yet here it was, proving that it doesn't just belong at the table. It may soon be building the table and deciding who gets to sit at it. But this wasn't just a show of strength. It was a message, a reminder that space is not just a playground for billionaires and satellites for streaming videos. It's now an active domain of defense. And India made it known. We will not be left behind. We will not be blind when others are watching. We will not be defenseless when others are armed. That message echoed across continents and made powerful nations recalculate their strategies. What followed, Mission Shakti, was even more impressive and more frightening. India's space agency, ISRO, and its military branches began integrating like never before. Satellites weren't just being launched, they were being weaponized with purpose. Communication satellites, Earth observation tech, and surveillance platforms were all optimized for real-time defense operations, the kind of systems that allow commanders to see threats long before they appear on radar. That's strategic foresight. That's tactical elevation. That's the kind of advantage that ends conflicts before they begin. And let's not forget, India did all of this while spending a fraction of what America spends on defense.
That's what really strikes fear into hearts, because it's not just what India is building, it's how efficiently they're building it. Leaner, smarter, more focused, less noise, more results. And when a nation starts optimizing like that, it becomes impossible to ignore and increasingly dangerous to underestimate. India's recent work in geospatial intelligence and space-based targeting systems has opened up a whole new playing field. The ability to track hostile movements in real time from space, whether it's across borders or oceans, means that India's defense system is no longer reactive. It's proactive, it's preemptive, it can see trouble coming and eliminate it before it becomes a threat. And that changes everything about how power works. And here's the deeper layer that makes this truly terrifying. This isn't just technical, it's deeply spiritual. Because for a nation like India to rise from being surveilled, colonized, and silenced for generations to now being the one watching, choosing, and securing from above, that's a divine reversal. That's heaven touching earth through innovation, through vision, through resilience. That's the kind of transformation that doesn't just inspire, it intimidates. So when people say they're surprised at India's success in space, I say they weren't paying attention. The climb was slow, quiet, humble, but now India has altitude, and with altitude comes authority, and with authority comes the power to make others afraid. That's why even America, with all its satellites and funding, has taken notice and started worrying, because India isn't just reaching for the stars, it's defending them with vision, with wisdom, with the kind of quiet power that doesn't ask for attention but demands respect. And sometimes that respect comes wrapped in fear. The future of warfare won't just be fought on land. It'll be decided by who holds the high ground. And India just claimed it, leaving the world to wonder what they'll do next. You know what's really catching the world off guard and making them genuinely afraid? It's not just the weapons India's building, it's who's building them. Behind the control panels, inside research labs, and up in the cockpits of fighter jets, you're seeing something that even 5 years ago would have seemed unthinkable to many. Indian women stepping into the defense spotlight with the kind of force, focus, and brilliance that can't be ignored and can't be underestimated. This isn't just a feel-good story about breaking barriers. This is a paradigm shift that's making military strategists around the world recalculate everything. Because when women start stepping into places that were once sealed off, not only does the system change, but the very definition of power changes with it. And power that can't be predicted is power that instills fear. We're witnessing that right now in India's defense evolution. The same nation that was once dismissed as too conservative, too traditional, too locked in its old ways is now producing female fighter pilots, missile engineers, naval officers, and AI defense coders who are redefining what dangerous looks like. And the world didn't see it coming. That's what makes it terrifying. Take a moment and think about what that represents. A young girl in rural India who probably grew up hearing things like, be quiet, stay in your place, or this isn't for girls, is now programming missile guidance systems that could eliminate targets with surgical precision. She's now flying a Sukhoi 30 at supersonic speeds, carrying enough firepower to level entire military installations. She's not just breaking glass ceilings, she's forging weapons of mass destruction. And this isn't just one or two headline-grabbing exceptions. It's becoming a wave, a tsunami of brilliant, focused, deadly, serious women who are making superpowers uncomfortable. Because for decades, power structures were built on predictability. They were built on hierarchies that made it easy to calculate threats and plan countermeasures. But when women step in, especially women who were previously marginalized, it messes up the algorithm, it scrambles the formula. Suddenly, power isn't just coming from predictable places, it's rising from what was once dismissed. And that kind of power shakes everything. The Indian Air Force has already inducted female fighter pilots into combat roles, and they're not just flying support missions. They're flying strike missions, armed with weapons that could change the course of conflicts. The Indian Navy is expanding its female officer roles in maritime warfare, putting women in charge of systems that control vast stretches of ocean and the threats that move through them. And inside DRDO,
Women scientists are not just participating, they're leading. The very people designing radar-evading systems, anti-drone lasers, and quantum computing applications for national defense are women who were once told to play it safe, stay quiet, and avoid taking risks. But they didn't listen. They chose the battlefield, mental, spiritual, technological, and now they're helping India rewrite the rules of modern warfare in ways that make traditional powers very nervous. There's something deeply prophetic about this transformation. When the ones who were kept in silence begin to speak, not with noise but with precision, everything changes. These women aren't just breaking barriers. They're building weapons. They're not seeking equality. They're creating superiority. And it's not about revenge, it's about results. This is what it looks like when a nation starts stepping into alignment with a higher purpose. Because let's be honest, this kind of breakthrough doesn't just happen randomly. It takes generational grit. It takes mothers raising daughters with fire in their bones and steel in their minds. It takes fathers standing against cultural tides to give their daughters wings. It takes institutions willing to evolve beyond traditional limitations. And most of all, it takes individuals who believe they were born for something greater than what others expected. That's why even the most advanced militaries in the world are watching with a mixture of admiration and fear, not just for the weapons India is producing, but for the kind of people producing them. Because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a hypersonic missile or a stealth fighter jet. It's a brilliant mind with unlimited potential, unshakable purpose, and nothing left to prove to anyone. That's what's shaking the ground beneath established powers. That's what's piercing through the atmosphere of predictable military hierarchies. Indian women in defense aren't just changing India's capabilities. They're changing the entire conversation about what's possible when half the population gets unleashed to reach their full potential. And the world better get ready, because this isn't a temporary trend that will fade away. It's a permanent shift that's just getting started. India's defense strategy isn't just about borders anymore. It's about belief systems. It's about proving that when the daughters of a nation rise to defend it, so does the destiny of that nation. And when that happens, the world takes notice. Sometimes with respect, sometimes with admiration, and sometimes with fear. So if you're wondering why America is afraid, if you're asking why global superpowers are losing sleep over India's military rise, it's because India isn't just upgrading weapons. India is upgrading the very DNA of what makes a nation powerful. They're not just building better missiles, they're building better people to operate those missiles. And when you combine advanced technology with unleashed human potential, you get something that doesn't just compete with superpowers, you get something that makes superpowers afraid. That fear is real, that fear is growing, and that fear is just the beginning of what happens when a sleeping giant truly wakes up and shows the world what's possible when nothing and no one is held back anymore.